Do you know what's the best thing about being an entrepreneur? You get to make so many mistakes. You get to learn from those mistakes. You get to make so many mistakes in such a short duration of time. Compare with a typical traditional businessman, number one. Number two, with a corporate slave. And you will see that you guys get such upper hand. Why? Because you get to learn so many lessons in such a short period. Whereas if you compare, if you see their life, you will see that over such a long period, they have such a small set of learnings or lessons. But this is exactly where the problem arises. Now, the problem is, I see young entrepreneurs, they end up learning at times wrong lessons from their mistakes, or in general, they end up learning the wrong lesson which was not supposed to be learned. Now, if you ask me personally, learning a wrong lesson is way more dangerous compared to not learning any lesson. Why? Because let's say if you end up learning a lesson which was not right for a long term approach, or a lesson which is not right in general, then what will happen? Now your brain has been fed with the wrong data. And every time now a situation of such a nature arises, you will again end up taking the wrong decision because your brain has been fed the wrong decision. Just to make it a bit more simpler for you, take an example of, let's say you're cooking and you end up burning your finger. And you decide now कि आज के बाद तो मैंने खाना ही नहीं बनाना. Now that is a wrong decision that you have boiled down to. Or let's say you end up having a heartbreak and you decide कि आज के बाद तो I am not going to talk to my opposite gender, or I am not ever going to meet someone from that opposite gender. Now that is again a wrong decision, a wrong lesson that you are absorbing in. This is where exactly today's young entrepreneurs go wrong. Now, I face this thing where, because during my entire journey of 6 to 7 years of being an entrepreneur, I have faced this not once but multiple times. Now, the one lesson which I learned wrong, which is coming on top of my mind, was during my dropshipping days. Now, you guys might be knowing that when you're starting your dropshipping stores, paid ads happens to be the biggest medium through which you can scale a dropshipping store. So I learned that lesson कि ठीक है, अगर कोई भी ब्रांड या कोई भी बिजनेस को उठाना है, paid ads is the only way to grow the business, or paid ads is the only form of marketing which is effective. Now, coming into organic side, it didn't used to value organic marketing to that level compared to paid marketing. So this was the wrong lesson that I absorbed during my dropshipping days, that only and only paid advertisement or the inorganic form of marketing is the kind of marketing that works. But that was a very, very wrong approach. And until very recently, I was following this advice only, or following this, or running every business of mine based on this assumption, this learning itself, which was a wrong approach. Now I have started relearning, or basically killing my old beliefs or those lessons and putting in the new learnings. Now, the thing is this, you need to understand what are those wrong lessons that you have learned, figure them out and understand. Why? Because if you see, when I was this person who takes, let's say, paid ads as the only form of advertisement, I had this belief कि कोई भी business को उठाने के लिए you don't need too much time. You or whenever I'm starting a business, it has to get me immediate sales. It has to get me immediate results, because that is what paid ads taught me. So again, this is the wrong lesson. And I was, you can say, blessed to start businesses at a very young age. But at the same time, this is the problem that it brought me in. I ended up learning several wrong lessons. So you need to figure that out. Now, if you ask me today, I would never choose, or I would never want a business, or I would never want to scale a business or grow a business in a short duration, or I look at a business as a short-term play. Whatever I am investing in, whatever I am starting, I rather ask a question, and if it gets a green go from that, then only I proceed in. And you should also be looking at from this aspect or this frame, that if you are given the chance to run this business for the rest of your life, will you be interested in doing that? And if the answer is no, please rethink your decision of even starting that business or even going deep into that business. Because if you can't, then that won't be, or you are probably doing that business with a very shallow approach. Moreover, one more thing that I figured out during this while is, now entrepreneurship happens to be a beautiful, beautiful journey in itself. Why? Because one of the great things about being an entrepreneur, you need to learn and unlearn so many things simultaneously. And one thing happens to be that entrepreneurs in their early days are taught that the time between, or the delay between the thought and execution should be very small. Rather, they should be immediate action takers, right? Now, over the period, you realize at times this advice doesn't work. At times, this advice will lead you to big, big problems. Now, just to give you an example, how this exact thing has made me fall into trouble at times. A very recent example happens to be when I was building on a bit. Now, whenever a client left the agency, I used to feel very sad, very frustrated. And what used to be my next step? Now I have absorbed this lesson कि कुछ भी गलत होता है, immediately take action. कुछ भी गलत होता है, immediately change things. But this is where things started going wrong. As soon as a client used to leave agency, I used to immediately go back to Blackboard. Where are we going wrong? Where are we going wrong? Rather than finding the problem, I started playing around with the systems, with the processes that were actually not the problem. So there was in fact no problem in the systems, but I still started playing it too hard with the systems. And this is where, like, you need to understand there will be times in your journey wherein you need to be calm, you need to be patient. And the best thing, there is no fault in your project, or there is no fault in you. It is due to some third party external factors. You need to understand these things. So at times taking no action is also a big action in itself. And lastly, the third thing connects with the second thing. Now when I meet these great founders, startup owners, or these people who have exited $1 million startups, $1 million companies of their own, one thing they are looking for in new businesses, or the criteria or the factor on which they decide that this business is going to be a great business, क्या है वो factor? It is based on volatility. Volatility, or let's say high volatility, happens to be a disease for a growing business. Yes. Why? Nobody, or rather I would say no successful person, would want to see highly volatile businesses. And when I say high, volatility, now volatility in business refers to too many ups and downs. Let's say you're making too many changes. ये नहीं चल रहा, मैं ये हटा के ये कर देता हूँ. ये खराब हो गया, मैं ये कर देता हूँ. Now this is where a smart investor, or a wealthy person who understands businesses, he would identify, okay, this happens to be extremely volatile business. इसमें हर दिन कुछ ना कुछ changes हो रहे हैं. This is not a way. Less volatility is showing consistency. Right? And I see people, or I see young entrepreneurs, they're business that they are looking to grow at an exponential rate. It is not always about exponential growth. It is not all, and moreover, this is a lesson for a younger Ackash. It is not always about exponential growth. And now what I'm going to address will be addressing two kinds of people. Number one, if you are someone who has just started a thing, what you should be looking out for? You should be looking out for कि I am at least far better than those people who haven't even started yet. There might be peers, there might be colleagues, there might be your same age group people sitting at home, probably Netflixing and chilling around on weekends, wherein you are grinding at least, even though you haven't seen any success, but still you are putting in the efforts, my man. You need to understand that. You need to believe this, that okay, I am at least taking one step or keeping one foot ahead, even though I am not able to see those results. बाकी लोग तो वो effort भी नहीं डाल रहे. And for the second kind of people, if you that consistent 10% per quarter growth, you shouldn't be sad कि ये 10 का 30 क्यों नहीं हो रहा है. If you are able to be consistent at the 10% for remainder of your business's life, I'm telling you, in a long run, you will be extremely profitable. So don't think about कि क्यों नहीं grow हो रहा है. Rather, look how you can stabilize things. And again, run away from volatility. Look for stability. I would just leave you with one thing. which is that is again a blessing for an entrepreneur to make mistakes, make many mistakes, and then learn from them. But at the same time, the caveat over here is learn the right lessons from those mistakes. And once you have figured out those right lessons from your mistakes, then try to apply those lessons and stabilize or find a stable source or grow any business with stability. So, yeah, I hope you liked it. And if you did, make sure to subscribe to the channel.